Riverside Farm is an idyllic location. It's right on the Kafui River. There's bananas growing here. It is an oasis, but all around, surrounding Riverside Farm is abject poverty. You go to these villages and you see people gather around a water pump to get water, to be able to carry for miles sometimes so that they can simply have water to drink. You recognize that there's food scarcity, just extreme poverty surrounding all around Riverside. But there's a commitment here to make a difference, to transform these communities, and much of that is done through education. And that's why the schools being located here on this campus, in this oasis, are so important to the surrounding community. The challenge is gaining access to the amazing education that is available at Riverside, because only the students that are within walking distance could actually attend here. And so as we began to assess this challenge, we recognized the importance of being able to provide transportation for children to be able to attend school here.
So we partnered with Child Impact on the school bus. It sits 38 people, and it's really great because we have a community that's about 30 minutes away, where children are still walking more than 2 hours to come to get on the bus and get here. If they were to do that without a bus, it just would be out of reach for them completely. It's a community that's very underserved for education. Many of the kids having really no educational opportunity at all.
As I visited the surrounding villages around Riverside Farm, it's very clear that walking from those locations is not a possibility. And yet it's only a 15-minute bus ride. Trying to walk the distance, the heat, the busy roads, the vulnerabilities that children have, all of these things make it impossible for them to have that as an option. But when we can pick them up at a bus stop, and I rode a bus going to school, and so when we have that option available for them, all of a sudden the possibilities open up in terms of children that have access to this school.
Yeah, so most of the kids that we deal with coming from the community with the bus would either be ending their life out cutting charcoal in the bush, which is really an amazing thing because you're actually doing more work than the calories they can afford to buy. It's just a way to extend life, to live a little longer, but really not a way of sustaining themselves. So they'd either be doing that, or they would be trying to find other ways to raise money, whether that's trafficking or some other way. So because there's just really no opportunity. The only other thing that they are able to do is sell stolen coal from the community. And so it's an interesting opportunity to help.
I really see sponsorship as a entry-level commitment, kind of a minimum threshold that I think every person should consider doing. At $1.06 a day for a child to be able to go to school, to be able to have a meal, this is a minor commitment for most American families or Canadian families or any first world family. That's a minimum kind of commitment that I think any individual should consider. And there's some individuals who say, I can sponsor more than one child, 2 or 5 or 10 or even 30. And if that's a possibility, from my experience of seeing this firsthand and the difference it makes in the life of a child, I want to encourage everybody who's watching this video to consider such a commitment as a minimum way to be involved. We recognize that with so many children needing access to education, that there was an opportunity here to expand the primary school. By adding 5 buildings to the primary school, that's grades 1 through 6, we were able to double the capacity for the number of students who can attend, from 360 students to 720 students. Every child that is able to attend here represents a potential transformation for the community that they've come from, because now they were going to be able to not only go to primary school here, but also to go to secondary school, to learn skills that are taught here on Riverside campus that will be able to help transform their families and their villages. Good morning, church. It's good to be here at our own church family to share with you today. It's a very special weekend because tomorrow, July 30, is the World Day Against Human Trafficking. So I have an illustration I'd like to start with and invite my son and our friend visiting from Latvia to come help me with this. All right, Andre, there we go. Come on up, Jane, and let's pull that tight. And anybody have a guess how many links are in this chain? Any guesses? It's a lot, right? There are 100 links in the chain, but how many are different? Just one, right? That one chain represents that only 1 out of 100 human trafficking victims ever escape. Friends, I think it is time to break the chains. Can we do that? Thank you for helping me with the illustration. Over this past month, millions of Americans have watched a movie entitled Sound of Freedom. It is likely that you have neighbors, relatives, and co-workers that now have a heightened awareness of the evils of human trafficking, which is called modern-day slavery. In fact, we've been handing out flyers for our event tomorrow down at the park, and even this morning, somebody said, "Oh, that movie, Sound of Freedom." Word is out that human trafficking is a major issue in this world, and something needs to be done about it. I think probably the most powerful line in the movie is the phrase, and it's a true story, is this phrase, "God's children are not for sale." And I think the movie has done a great job of raising awareness, but I believe it's important to move from awareness to action. It's good to know about something. It's very different to actually do something tangible about it. And that's why we're here today, and that's what I want to share with you in a way that I hope will bring conviction to your heart through the Holy Spirit, that there is something practical that you can do to make a difference in the fight against human trafficking. So as I mentioned, July 30 is the World Day Against Human Trafficking. Starting last year, Child Impact has identified this day as a major focus where we draw attention to this issue and we're able to raise funds for the projects that we support that are fighting human trafficking. In fact, we have several events happening. We're hoping that close to 200 churches right now as I speak are sharing this video with their local congregations and also our magazine. If you didn't get one on the way in, please pick one up. This highlights our projects currently that we're involved with. So we have these events happening this morning all around North America. And then tonight at 5 o'clock, you do not want to miss. We have special guests here. We have our partner from the country of Colombia that is here. That is where the film Sound of Freedom was made, in Colombia. And our partner, we have already been fighting human trafficking there. We've already been involved. And so this is not something where we're getting on board with. We're already on board. We're already doing it. So he's here, our partner that helped us, one of our 3 locations that received Ukrainian refugees. She's here. One of our partners at one of those locations is here today as well. And so we have some special guests that we want you to meet, but all that will take place at 5 o'clock. And then tomorrow, on the World Day Against Human Trafficking, we have opened up the Southern Adventist University Gymnasium, so you don't have to worry about the hot weather, and we're having a family impact day, bounce houses, there will be food there, there'll be something for every age. Come along and join us, and it's an awareness event, but also an opportunity for individuals to join what we call the Rescue Party. And so we'll be talking more about the Rescue Party this evening, as well as tomorrow at this special event. I want to go ahead and pause now for a word of prayer, and then we'll jump right into the message. Dear Lord, we know that there's a heightened awareness right now of this issue of human trafficking, and I just want to pray that as we reflect about this challenge and what can be done about it, that you will give us very clear direction in how you want to use us to make a difference. Thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, I come from a background of pastoring as well as a seminary professor. And as a professor, I learned that you have to test your students. And actually, 2 of my students, you know very well, Nate and Christina Dubbs, both were students of mine at Andrews University when they went there. But I have a quiz for you this morning. Is that okay? We'll see how you do. You have to listen very carefully for the answers. But here we go with the quiz. In what country do children as young as 12 join in the Civil War in order to have food to eat? So you have to listen to find the answer, but the options here are Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Zambia, or the Philippines. Next question. What is the type of fast that God wants? Is it a veggie juice fast, intermittent, to break the chains of the oppressed, or social media? Next question. What is the main cause for the lack of food in developing countries? Now, every answer up here is a good one. The question is, which is the best one? So this is, as a professor, you learn you have to ask a trick question to separate the A's from the B's and C's, right? So this is for A students, this question right here. Is it conflict and war? Is it poverty, poor agricultural practices, or not enough rain? Final question. Where is Child Impact's secret project? Is it in North Korea, Iraq, Somalia, or you'll find out this evening at 5 p.m.? Is that fair? Here we go. Now I just want you to imagine being at the synagogue in Nazareth as Jesus is visiting his home church. Someone has asked him to stand up and read the scripture for the day. And Jesus turns in the scroll, I'm sure from memory, to what we call Isaiah 61, verse 1, and this is what he reads. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to, let's read the bold parts together, proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. Now, as Jesus stood there before them, to that audience on that day, he was the son of Mary and Joseph. He was a well-established carpenter, but they had not necessarily yet put together that standing before them was the fulfillment of these ancient words from Isaiah. In fact, what Jesus was announcing to them that day is that he was the fulfillment, and this was his mission. So these words are super powerful as you look at them, that he has come to proclaim good news to the poor, liberty to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those who are oppressed. Now, our key passage actually flips back probably just a page or two, and it begins this way, and it has many of those same themes as we will see in a moment. But I focus today on Isaiah 58, verses 6 through 8. And verse 6 begins this way. This is the way that I want you to fast. Now, my family and I just attended a health retreat at the Lifeline Wellness Institute in Illinois. And as part of that retreat, we had 2 90-hour fasts over a period of 2 weeks. Now, I've slipped a couple times and said 90-day fast. We wouldn't have survived that. They were 90-hour fasts. So they give us a little really nice food to show us that they're really good cooks, and then 90 hours of fasting. Then we get a couple more days of really good food, and then another 90 hours of fasting. And then finally they send us home with some food so we feel kind of good about the whole thing. But I can tell you, it is miserable to go without food. It is no fun at all. And fasting is all about giving up. But I found out that there are some other creative ways if you don't want to give up food. There's some other creative ways to fast. For example, set strict time limits for social media use or remove it altogether. So these are some suggestions I found on the internet. How about giving up hitting snooze? Now here's another one I tried momentarily, but it absolutely did not work for me. Give up looking in the mirror in order to be more humble. Now I find that I'm more humbled when I look in the mirror, because each time a few more gray things have come in. So I don't know how that one's really fasting. Give up video games. I suppose for some that might be true. And then go through your possessions and donate 25% of them, and don't replace them by buying other things. Now, whether it's giving up food or this list that I just shared with you, there's a clear theme that comes with the idea of fasting, and that is to give up, give up, give up. Biblical fasting actually is a very positive experience as highlighted in Scripture in most cases. There are over 70 references to fasting, and they come in relationship with hearing more clearly from God. But not all external practices of fasting end up with internal transformation. In fact, we know the story of the Pharisee who said that I fast twice a week and I give a tenth of all that I get, and Jesus' evaluation of that particular practice was not very positive. And perhaps that's the kind of fasting that we find referred to here in Isaiah 58 verses 4 and 5. The way you are now fasting keeps your prayers from being heard in heaven. Do you think that is the way I want you to fast? Is it only a time for people to make themselves suffer? God then introduces an entirely different type of fasting that does not involve giving up. Rather, it involves getting up and taking action on behalf of those who are downtrodden. So here is to our key verse now. Beginning again, here is the way I want you to fast. I want you to say nice and loud with me when we get to, we'll come back to it, those highlighted words, because they're action words, and go ahead and do the bolded last one as well. But let's just nice and loud when we get to them. Here is the way I want you to fast. Set free those who are held by chains without any reason. Untie the ropes that hold people as slaves. Set free those who are crushed. Break every evil chain. Now, these are incredible action words. Set free, that first set free, is from the Hebrew word pathach, meaning to open. So if you're closed in, if you're shut in, when I was working in a grocery store, one of my first days in the grocery store, I accidentally locked myself in the cooler. And I could not find the light. I could not find the door handle for the life of me. And I'm banging. And of course, these are thick doors. And finally, somebody comes and opens this door, wondering where has Tom disappeared to. Well, I can tell you that opening and being set free is a powerful thing. So if you're shut up and you have this meaning of opening, pathach, you're truly set free. And so that's super important. The next one here is untie. And, we'll go back to the second set free. And that's from the Hebrew word shalak. So these are two different words, both translated set free. Shalak, which means to send. So somebody cannot be sent unless they're free. If you're tied up, you can't be sent. And so that's a very important reference there also to setting free. But then let's move to this word untie. It's from the verb nathar. It's a powerful word that is attributed to God's actions in Psalms 146, verse 7. So let's take a look at that. He upholds the cause of the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. This sounds very much like Isaiah 61:1, doesn't it? The Lord unties or sets prisoners free. And then finally we come to this word break. It is from the verb nathak, which literally means to pull or tear away. Now I was fascinated to find that this word is used 3 times in Judges chapter 16 in reference to Samson snapping the cords that people tied him to. So these are very visual verbs that are being used here. Verbs by definition imply action, but there has to be a subject. What is the subject of the action? Let's take a look at that. Here we go. Those who are what? Held by chains. Let's go through this again. Set free those who are held by chains that hold people as slaves, and set free those who are crushed. So who are these individuals that this is referring to today? I believe that those that are caught up in human trafficking best represent all of these individuals that are specified here in this verse. Human trafficking, as I referred to earlier as modern-day slavery, is a modern-day crime that needs to be brought to the light of day. 50 million people are enslaved by human trafficking globally. Now, I want us to grasp how big that is. That is equivalent to the population of Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee combined. That is massive. There are more slaves in the world today than at any time in human history. The average price for a slave today is the most affordable it's ever been in human history, with an average price of $90 for a slave. Second statistic that's so heartbreaking is the one that we referred to earlier with the chain. Only 1 out of 100 individuals enslaved by human trafficking is ever free. That's why, for those that may be familiar with the story of The Sound of Freedom, when the two agents are discussing with each other their work, and one says, well, how many perpetrators have you caught? And he gave a number of 200 and something. How many kids have you set free? What was the response? Silence. Silence. This is the challenge with human trafficking, because once someone is trapped in it, it's very hard to get them out. The next one here, victims of human trafficking only live an average of 7 years after being taken against their will. Very short lifespan once somebody goes into human trafficking. Human trafficking is a $150 billion business, largely funded by illegal activities of individuals located in the United States. Now, I hope you come along tonight at 5 o'clock, because we want to share a lot more with you about this, more than we have time for here this morning. But I can tell you that this is a huge challenge, and I believe that we are called to make a difference. So Child Impact has embraced this mandate of Isaiah 58 to break the chains that are enslaved by the evils of human trafficking. Our goal is to eradicate exploitation, setting vulnerable children free to have a bright future, one that is filled with hope. Hope has to be one of the most powerful words in the English language. In fact, one of our partners in Africa said this: when you have hope, you have enough. And so that is something that we want to deliver globally to children that have been enslaved. Several years ago, Child Impact initiated a project called Operation Child Rescue. Now, child sponsorship for impoverished and disadvantaged children has always been the core to the mission of Child Impact, actually for the last 57 years. Previously known as Asian Aid, started in Australia, came to the United States as Asian Aid USA, and then when we became more global, the name changed to Child Impact, and now we serve in many, many countries all around the world. But Operation Child Rescue focuses on the most vulnerable children who are entrapped by exploitation and who are considered highly at risk. We have both rescue and prevention as part of our strategy. Now, the first projects started in India, and this is what I'm wearing today, is an outfit that I was given in India. If you're wondering, what in the world is he dressed like that for? I don't do that every Sabbath. I usually wear my Child Impact shirt if you see me here at church. But this is an outfit from India, and that's where our first projects started. Now, when I joined Child Impact a couple of years ago, I was very fascinated by this project called Operation Child Rescue, and there were 3 excellent projects in India fighting human trafficking. And so as I looked at this, I realized that the Seventh-day Adventist Church was doing and had done practically nothing to fight human trafficking. I knew of one project in Thailand. I didn't even know about Child Impact's projects. In fact, I had never even heard of Child Impact when they asked me to come and lead this organization. The more I learned about it, the more I decided I want to be a part of this. And I want the word to get out. And so when I joined, there were these 3 projects. I only knew about one in Thailand. And so we began to do a survey of the world and ask the question, what are Adventists doing to fight human trafficking? And I can tell you, we found less than 10 projects globally. And as we looked at those projects, we began to wonder, how can we partner with some of those projects that need additional support? And also, how can we launch some new projects? But it began in India, and this is a place where hidden brothels, begging rings, and forced child labor in factories is commonplace. And literally, doors of brothels were knocked down as we staked out sites with government officials and rescue missions were undertaken. One of the biggest challenges is on the ledgers of the brothels were the names of government officials and police officers. And so much corruption takes place in this fight against human trafficking that it's really a challenge. But we established a preschool in the Weizig slum. You can look it up. It's a large slum area where prostitution takes place in broad daylight. Now, they didn't inform me before I visited, but I heard after I visited that when we walked through that area, they had informed certain individuals to look out for our safety. I didn't feel unsafe, but it's because our safety was being looked out for. But I was able to stand on a roof there in the Weizig slum, where we have a preschool, where many of the children in that preschool are children of prostitutes. And I was able to stand there, and our partner there pointed out, that's a brothel, that's a brothel, that's another brothel. And as we have attempted to transform that street, to transform the lives of these women who have signed up for prostitution, we were able to meet, because we offer a tailoring program there, we were able to meet ladies who have left that behind and are now involved in tailoring. One that opened a shop, another girl who still lives there that's a nurse and working in a nearby community. It was just incredible to see the transformation begin to take place. I want to share with you, as we've expanded, we now have 16 projects in 12 countries and growing. We currently have 5 new projects that are being explored, and our newest project will launch in September in a favela in Brazil, and that will be project number 17. But the challenge, of course, is once you start a project to fight human trafficking, you don't leave that project to do another one. You stay with it. And so you can't leave the girls abandoned, or the boys, whoever you're rescuing, you can't leave them abandoned. You have to keep working with it. But I want to share just briefly with you about a couple of our projects that we're involved with. The first one here I want to share with you is in Zambia. That's where the video was filmed. That's of the primary school, of the young kids. If we can get them in school and going a good direction in their life, they may not end up in human trafficking. We hope that. But these girls are all rescue girls. And we have been involved in education there at Riverside, sponsoring students to go to school, helping build facilities for them to go to school for many years. But we learned that on the border of Zambia and Zimbabwe is a place where truck stops are located, because truckers are going across the border, and there's multiple truck stops there. And so these girls go out to sell vegetables there along the street to the truck drivers or whoever else comes by, to somehow survive with their families. And here's what typically happens. You have a family that's just barely making it. They're just on a thread, and then a crisis happens. We met a young lady whose father was a fisherman. He would walk 2 hours, and I met him. He would walk 2 hours to fish, 2 hours back home. But one day as he was fishing, he was attacked by a crocodile. And he pulled down his pants to show me the scars there where the crocodile just, mutilated his leg. So he can no longer walk 2 hours. So all of a sudden now this family that was depending on him for that little bit of fish to barely make it, what do they do now? The daughter ends up in trafficking. We have another case where a young girl, her parents were much older. She had an older brother that was in his 40s, and she's a teenager at this time. The parents are retired. They're not able really to work well. And so the older brother was driving a truck to earn a living for the family and had a stroke. He's now completely just incapacitated. We met him just laying out on a bed there. And we have that in our video tonight. You're going to be able to see that story. That girl ended up in trafficking. So we began to offer these girls another opportunity in their life, a chance to go to school, a chance to pursue their education. And so we were able to rescue, initially we said we would rescue 25 girls and put them into a rented dormitory near the campus of Riverside Farm where we had our school. Quickly the request came, can you take 35? Then another girl went home and studied some more and she passed the exam, can you take 36? And so thanks to donors, last July 30, we raised funds to build a dormitory for 100 girls. And so that dormitory is nearing completion, and we are looking forward to bringing 64 more rescued girls. And today you have a very unique opportunity because we want to pre-sponsor these girls who are going to be rescued, because they literally come with nothing. They do not even have underclothes. And so these girls that we rescued, we had to come in with some extra funds to just supply basic needs. So we want to pre-sponsor them so that they have an arrival package, a welcome package that's ready for them when they start school in January. So you don't know who the girl will be yet, but you can begin the sponsorship. And on January 1st, when they start school, right on the 1st of January, we will send you a profile of the girl that you helped rescue. I think that's an exciting opportunity. We've not offered this online. We've not offered this on the videos that we produce. We saved that for you guys here today. So I hope all those girls are sponsored sometime here today. So that's a really amazing opportunity. I want to move on to Pakistan. And we had Pastor Greg. I'm going to pick on you since you're here today. Pastor Greg is working in a brick kiln in Pakistan. It's hard work, manual work, very difficult. And one day, he and his wife discovered that something's not going very well with her health. Things continue to deteriorate, and he knows that she will not survive unless she has a surgery. But he has no money to get a surgery for his wife. So he goes to the owner of the brick kiln, the big boss, sits down with him and said, look, I really need your help. I'm desperate. I don't know what to do. My wife needs a surgery. Will you give me a loan? Well, the owner of that brick kiln is all too happy to give a loan at a very high interest rate. And he knows that Greg will never, ever be able to pay that loan off. This is something that is called indentured servitude. It is slavery. And so not only does Greg not able to ever leave that brick kiln, they abuse his wife because they can. And then they also put his children to work because they can. He has no way out. And so Child Impact decided that we would be involved in helping families find freedom. So we paid their debt. Their debt is typically between $400 and $800. Donors generously supported that. You're going to meet one of the donors that supported 3 families. He's here today, and you can meet him at the table just on the back. His name's Brian, but he'll be here to share why he got involved. So we provide paying off their debt and also a home for 6 months with food so they can be taken care of as they search for a new job. And we literally have videos and pictures of their freedom being signed to say, you are now free to work anywhere you choose. They have freedom now. So they take the very few possessions they have, they move into this rented home that we have for them. And so far, 3 of the 4 men of the leaders of these families that have been freed have found new jobs. And the 4th one, we need to pray for him. He's been ill, but I'm sure that he will also find a job once he recovers. This is one of my favorite projects. I was on the helicopter that went down in the Philippines about 3 weeks before it crashed, and there's been no sign of the survivors. Many of you know about that story. They've had another helicopter crash just the other day. This time, those on board survived. But it's the devil is attacking the work there in these mountainous villages in Palawan. We met so many child brides that already have babies. And as our partner there says, you can just see the light in their eyes go out. They're still present, but the hope, the joy for the future, all that has just disappeared. These girls do not want to get married at 12 years old. How do I know that? Because one of them asked to be my friend on Facebook. I didn't know how old she was, but I had enough mutual friends that I accepted her friendship. And she thanked me for coming and said, are you going to sponsor us? And I said, yes, we're going to come back and we're going to sponsor you. So I contacted our partner in the Philippines and I said, my wife and I want to sponsor this girl. She had the initiative to reach out and make a friendship with me on Facebook. We want to sponsor this girl. He said, Tom, when I got that photo, I had to look twice because that girl was married at 12 years of age. So I messaged her and I said, yes, we want to sponsor, but I understand that you're already married. She said, yes, sir. I'm so sad because I'm so younger and I want to be a nurse. Well, this young lady has refused her dreams because her parents and her husband say, no, you can't pursue your dreams. This is illegal in the Philippines, so us coming in to help with this is not something the Filipino government is opposed to. It's just that these villages are so remote that they get away with these practices. I met a young girl, the one on the front of the magazine that you have. She almost lost her life. Nobody even knew she was pregnant till the last few days. She had to be taken by helicopter to the hospital. She almost died in the hospital. It is not safe for a girl that's 12, 13, 14, 15 years old to have a baby. They can lose their life. It's not safe for the babies that are born to them. And so we have opened up these jungle schools where we are sponsoring students to go to school. We are opening up a vocational training school so the boys will stay in school and not drop out of school and then pull out a child bride. Because you don't want to see a girl pursuing her dream. All of a sudden, this young man that drops out says, I need a child bride. And not all the husbands are young men either. Some of them are older. So this is something we want to fight against as well. And because the dowry is the most important thing to the family, they want to have girls instead of boys so they can get the dowry. That qualifies this project as being human trafficking because they're trading goods for their daughter. This last one that I want to share is our secret project, and I will be giving the details about that. Jason from our team actually will be giving those details at 5 o'clock. It's a project that's so complex that we have many different paths and avenues we've had to take even to get resources to them. But you will definitely want to find out what that project is when we have the cameras and audio muted. So let's look at what God says about those who are involved in helping those who are being crushed, those who are downtrodden. Then the light of my blessing will shine on you like the rising sun. Doesn't that sound beautiful? If you get involved in doing ministry and helping individuals that meet the classification we just looked at of human trafficked individuals, the light of my blessing will shine on you like the rising sun. I will heal you quickly. I will march out ahead of you, and my glory will follow you behind you and guard you. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's the promise to those who are involved in this kind of work. I want to go back one verse because I believe that Isaiah 58, 6 and 7, verse 6 highlights the work of Child Impact fighting human trafficking. Verse 7 highlights the work of Child Impact in fighting poverty and hunger. And so it says this: share your food with hungry people. Provide homeless people with a place to stay. Give naked people clothes to wear. Provide for the needs of your own family. Again, there's some very alarming statistics related to poverty and hunger. Nearly 22,000 children die each day due to living in poverty. 45% of all child deaths worldwide are from causes related to undernutrition. 9 out of the 10 poorest countries in the world are located in Africa. The other one on that list is where our secret project is located. So you can do a little search and figure that out before you come tonight. And then here's the answer to the quiz. Conflict is the biggest driver of hunger, with 70% of the world's hungry people living in areas afflicted by war and violence. So as I mentioned, the core work of Child Impact is related to education. Even when we rescue children, the goal is to help provide them an education. So I think that we have kind of a unique space that we're involved in because we've been so involved in education for so many years, for decades. We have a network of schools globally. We have a place to send the rescued kids to. So I know there's organizations, certainly outside Adventism, that fight human trafficking. There's organizations outside Adventism that have sponsorship as a component, and there's even a few of those inside Adventism. But I don't know of an organization that does both, that brings the fight against human trafficking together with the opportunity for education. I think this is a powerful combination, and I really want to invite you to join us on this journey. Help us just explode this with growth and see what can be done, because education is absolutely so powerful, and we're able to send thousands of children to school. But we discovered that some of these kids are going to school hungry. Even our project in the Philippines, they said some of the kids were practically fainting in school. They couldn't focus on studies because they hadn't had any food to eat. So last year, Child Impact added a lunch program, and I was able to witness this firsthand. It was most powerful to me in Bangladesh, where I saw the kids just digging in with their hands, and you see food all over their face. These are little kids, but they're getting a meal. It's absolutely powerful. And so last year, we provided 2.4 million meals through our education program so that kids don't have to be hungry at school. In Ethiopia, Children are recruited into the Civil War as young as 12 years of age, simply so they can have food to eat. I'm going to share a short video here from Bangladesh, but what I learned about food scarcity there broke my heart. And I'll let one part be shared by the video. But as I saw those kids eating their lunch, the village school that we visited, I asked the teachers what it was like before we started adding a lunch program to our sponsorship. And they said, none of the kids have breakfast. 0. None of them bring lunch to school. 0. Some of them get dinner. They can probably count on dinner about every other day. So you imagine what a desperate situation these kids are in. But I want to share with you about a boy that my family sponsors in Bangladesh. We sponsor 3 children. We're more involved in that as well. We support Operation Child Rescue. I'm going to share how committed we are to this mission in a moment, but I want you to meet our boy. It's a very brief video here, our boy that we sponsor in Bangladesh. Simeon is a boy that my family has been sponsoring here in Bangladesh, and he traveled from where he lives to the big city in Dhaka to spend the day with me. And so we got to walk on the streets, we got to experience many things. For him, it was the first time to do that, and we got to spoil him just a little bit. We got a little bit of sugarcane juice for him to drink there on the street, and bought him a special treat. And then I wanted to get him a soccer jersey for his favorite team. And of course, Argentina that just won the World Cup, his favorite player is Messi, and so we were able to get him a shirt. And able to kick a ball around a little bit, ride around in a rickshaw, and it was just an amazing experience. As I interacted with Simeon, I discovered that he has 4 siblings, but 2 of them tragically have passed away due to sickness. And then our sponsorship coordinator here in this country let me know that part of the funds that Child Impact sends to support these children provides some basic medical care, and in exceptional circumstances, they contact our office for additional help. So I wondered what would have happened, what would the difference have been in the outcome had Simeon's brothers been sponsored in one of our schools. I have not really thought about sponsorship being a life and death circumstance before, but as I reflected on this personal story with a child that I am sponsoring, that my family sponsored, and his journey, I had to recognize that sponsorship does mean life and death in many cases for these children. Back in the United States, I selected Simeon based on a photo and profile. This profile shared with me certain things about what grade he's in, what school he goes to, how old he is, and even a little bit about his family. But what a different experience to meet him firsthand, to be able to put my arm around his shoulder, to be able to go and experience things with him for the very first time. And I see that sponsorship is real, that real lives are impacted. It was such a joy to spend the day with Simeon and to bring this little piece of joy to his life and know that even though I'm half a world apart, that it can be making a difference in the life of a child in such a significant way. Simeon is an amazing kid. He keeps a Bible by his bed and he reads it on his own, and he wants to grow up and be a pastor. Such a great kid, and I'm just so amazed, and it's such a blessing to have that experience. With such a massive challenge, I know it can seem overwhelming, but I like to put it this way: you can change the world one child at a time. And today we have children that are available to sponsor, and I want to invite you to consider one of 2 stops. On the left-hand side as you go out is a table where we have these girls that are going to be rescued between now and the end of the year, and you can pre-sponsor them and take one of those profiles. On the right-hand side as you go out are kids like Simeon that you can correspond with, you can have a relationship with. You're welcome to go and visit them if you like, if you want to take that opportunity. But I know some of you are able to sponsor more than one child, and I really want to bring that challenge to you. The other day we had, I was visiting, it was about a year ago now actually, with a sponsor who had 3 kids, and he said, "Tom, it's time to do more. I want 17 more kids, so I have an even 20. We have sponsors, some with 30 kids. And what a way, because when you invest in a child, they have their whole future ahead of them. And it's just powerful, the difference that it can make. Our sponsorship coordinator in Bangladesh was an orphan and a sponsored child through Child Impact. He's now running our sponsorship program. The school where I stayed at, one of the schools I stayed at, the leaders of that school were once sponsored by Child Impact and are now leading the school. This is the kind of thing we see over and over again. Our partner at one of our schools in Africa, he was sponsored into the home of missionary family. He is now the secretary of the largest division for the Adventist Church in the world field, and he's looking after one of our schools. They're asking him to be president, but he says, look, I have to take care of this school. I said, you let us take care of the school, you go be president. So just amazing stories, and I want you to stop by and see the light box, the story of the young man whose parents his father tried to burn him, poured gas on him to burn him. And you can still see the scars there on his arm. But read his story and see what he's done with his life. It's absolutely powerful. I want to finish by just sharing with you, as I mentioned, the commitment that my family, that my wife and I have to the mission that we're involved in. And it's really followed us our whole lives. When my wife and I started dating, she said, Tom, I want us to have 10 kids. I thought, oh my goodness, she can't be serious. I'll take my chances. I did discover that she was not intending that all of those would be biological children. And so in 2014, our family decided to host 2 boys from an orphanage in Latvia. Probably not many of you here have been to Latvia, may not even be able to point to it on a map. It's a Baltic country that borders Russia. And we eventually adopted these 2 incredible boys. And by the way, we have started the adoption process again for 2 girls from Bulgaria. And we'll see if God continues to open the doors for that. But I'm telling you, we're all in. We sponsor kids as well. We support Operation Child Rescue. My whole family is involved in this mission. And you look at my son that was up here. He wants to go into medical work, but he wants to go and be involved in medical missions. One of my other sons wants to be involved in construction, but he wants to build houses for people that are homeless. Our family's all into this, all right? And so we eventually, as I said, adopted these boys, and people tell us what an amazing opportunity that we've given them. And honestly, we feel like we are the ones that have been blessed. There's a lady here today, experienced a death in her family, and she's here for the funeral. But she has 4 young girls that she adopted from China. And those girls, and the older ones are talking about their career goals. They want to be surgeons, and some career I didn't even understand. It was so complicated and amazing. So it's the difference that can be made when we decide to jump in the ring and actually do something is incredible. And I can tell you, we are the ones who are better for it. Our children are the ones who are better for it, the biological children that we have. And now they're all our children, right? You don't even have the difference. But we hosted these boys initially through Project 143. Now, we have 2 ladies here from Project 143. And what I say is what we've done with adopting and all that, that's not for everybody, but it may be for somebody here. And so if that's something that God has put on your heart and you've just been looking for the opportunity, please stop and talk to these 2 ladies, because they're children from Colombia that are waiting to be adopted, and you can actually host them in your home before you finish the adoption. So it's a powerful, amazing experience. Please talk with them. We want to see a whole group of kids come into the Collegedale area that have been hosted and then end up being adopted. So these 2 boys, when we met them, were 5 years old and 7 years old. And at that time, they were not, when we went for adoption the first time, they were not available. So we were able to host them in our home several times, 5 times actually. We went to Latvia to visit them. But as we finally started the adoption process again, we noticed, because we stayed in touch with the boys, we noticed in our video calls that the youngest boy, we knew was in the hospital. We knew he'd been sick, but I noticed that he was starting to lose his hair. And I'm like, oh no, this does not look good. And so we immediately contacted the adoption agency and said, can you somehow find out for us, is he sick? What's going on? And she said, well, it's a little unusual to be able to give that kind of information, but I will check and see what I can find out. So she checked into what was going on and came back and said, this is the sickest boy that we've ever had as part of our adoption program. He has leukemia. And so finally, 2 years ago, we were able to go and pick the boys up. We had to spend about a month in Latvia. We love the country of Latvia. He was supposed to be in remission. This is what we were told. And so we brought him home. And we had several very good months as a family. All that Andres ever wanted was to be part of a family. And so here are the boys when we first met them. They're in the front. Some of you know Daniel. Some of you know Andre, our son, and Lucas is a sophomore at Southern. Andre's going to be a freshman now. So this was a long time ago, right? This is how long these boys have been a part of our lives. And there's Daniel, what a cutie. And then Andres there in the very front. Just amazing boys. And so as we brought them home, we began to just enjoy that dream that Andres always had of being a family. And we weren't really that worried because he was in remission, right? And so we had a few wonderful months together. He loved to help greet here at Collegedale Community Church. This is right at the door, just right out here. He would come after Sabbath school and hop on the golf cart with me and drive around. And just an amazing, amazing kid who had so much love to give. But it was close to Christmas, a year and a half ago now, that he was in such excruciating pain. My wife had to call the ambulance to take him to the hospital. We knew something was wrong, and we'd already booked tickets to go back to Latvia because we had free medical care there for him. And we knew they would have to do a bunch of tests, but they said there is not an airplane on planet Earth that will let you take this boy anywhere right now. So we didn't know how we were going to afford it. Pastor Jerry made some calls. I have always been a pastor. I've not had the opportunity to be pastored. And I want to say that the pastors here at this church are absolutely incredible. We were so blessed by their ministry and also the ministry of this church to our family. Well, that began a journey of Andres in and out of the hospital, having a bone marrow transplant over in Nashville, our family living apart for during that period of time. After the bone marrow transplant, he passed 100 days, which is kind of the mark that they look at and say, you know, we're on the right path. But then the leukemia relapsed. And I still remember Dr. Mixon here at Erlanger sitting beside Andres' bed and said, leukemia's come back. These are some of the toughest days of our life. I shared for those that came to the memorial service because he did pass away on April 13. But as I was driving to the hospital when they moved him from the cancer ward down to ICU, in ICU, that I thought this might be the end, that we might be headed toward the end. I saw one sign on the road to the hospital, and that said, trust Jesus. And I was so angry. I'm like, that is not what I'm feeling right now. That is not what I need right now. But I can tell you during those days that followed, that was the thing that I held the closest to, is trust Jesus. And as we reflect now, looking back, we are grateful that Andres was not alone, all by himself in some hospital in Latvia, where nobody loved him, nobody cared, but he was surrounded by people who loved him. The day he passed away, the last person that talked with him awake was Pastor Jerry. My wife was there with him, and that was the last time he woke up, was to say bye to Pastor Jerry. And I can't tell you how much that's meant to our family. But as I look at it, he was surrounded. He got to experience love. He got to be part of a family. He was surrounded by people that loved him. And I don't regret it for a moment that we adopted the sickest child that had ever been a part of that program. We have his very healthy brother who's a soccer superstar. And please stop by and see him at the table. Say hi to Daniel. But it lit such a fire in me. I said, you know what? We're not too old to adopt still. We still qualify. let's start, let's do this, because I don't want to go further and regret that I didn't do as much as I could while we're here. This life is not about having a nice home, having all the things that we want for ourselves so our lives can be comfortable. That's not what living in this world is about. We're called to make a difference. And so we said, let's do it again. Let's do it again. But I want to give opportunity for those that can't do that to say, let's make a difference in the life of a child. And let them know that someone has their back, that someone is caring for them, that someone wants them to succeed, that they're worth it, that they're worth it. So today I want to give you that challenge. As I met with 5 girls that we rescued, I just preached a sermon at Riverside Farm, and 5 girls approached me. And her picture was up on the screen, but one girl was a spokesperson. She was trembling a little bit nervous. She said, "We want to thank Child Impact for changing our lives." She said, "We've had it really tough." Wow, it makes it all worth it. Well, we have a quiz to look at. We have a special song. So let's take a look here. In what country do children as young as 12 join the Civil War in order to have food to eat? That is in B, Ethiopia. All right, very good. Thank you. What is the type of fast that God wants? All right, to break the chains of the oppressed and probably to fast from social media from time to time. What is the main cause for the lack of food in developing countries? Conflict and war. And where's Child Impact's secret project? You can find out at 5 o'clock. All right, so again, to sponsor a child, out the door on the left, these are children that are going to be rescued from trafficking. On the right are those that you can see their profiles now, begin communicating with them. We have a special song to close. Nina's part of our team. It's the song Rescue. Nina spends 10 hours a week with us, helping to contact churches to share the story of what Child Impact is doing. So it's very appropriate that as part of our team, she's able to close with this song, and then we'll have the benediction. Dear Lord, there is an army here today, and I want to pray that you will activate us, that you will send us out on rescue missions for you. Thank you that you've given us an opportunity to make a difference in this broken world. In Jesus' name, amen.